Alright, so we've got another session of some 50NL 6-max today. Just sat down, and I am actually going to 3-bet the ace-jack. And I'm pretty much okay if they fold pre-flop, because then we don't have to play a flop out of position. Now after putting in a big 3-bet, I am going to represent the king, and they are going to represent something worth calling with. I turned 4 outs to the nut straight. 3 of them are to the absolute nuts. The diamond would not be a nut out, but I am not going to try and barrel this off. And interesting river. Should I bet? Fold? Something small? Probably. And the red line goes up. So probably sucked out on 9s, or is there an 8 on that flop? I think there was, so it couldn't be pocket 8s. So maybe like a hand like 9s. So I 3-bet and that guy spazzed. So we'll put it in. He might have thought I was squeezing. Obviously, if he folds here, we're in great shape. Nah, he was slow playing the king, so we're going to start stuck. Can't even hit our spade. I think that hand went raise, flat call, 3-bet, 4-bet. So kind of a weird way to play kings. Worked out for him. And we are going to start stuck a buy-in, minus what we won on that table. And given that stack size, we'll pass that. I'm back. Come on. So queens couldn't, I couldn't get away from queens this time, and I couldn't hit a set. So queens have been good to me this week. Not that time. Run into one of the 2 hands that has us in terrible shape. I mean, it is a weird line to take. Maybe you can put them on aces or kings and either call or fold. So, I mean, so I was kind of paying attention up here still too, but the way I, in my mind, had understood the hand, I want to see how the pre-flop action went. So under the gun, half stack, limps. Ah, that's what I missed. So I assumed this guy had opened. I still don't think I'm getting away from it though. So I did misread how the hand went due to this guy cold calling the 3-bet. Like, I didn't think someone would limp and then cold call a 3-bet. Obviously, he's not a very strong player. You can tell kind of from the stack size he hasn't rebought. And he open limped pre, but I didn't know that at the time. So his range was actually probably 10s, jacks, queens, kings, aces, ace, king, maybe ace, queen suited, but more realistically, ace, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, which queens actually isn't that good against. But honestly, it's really hard to fold queens, readless, 6-max, pre-flop. I think you could argue either way. I'm not going to stress out too much about it, though it's not fun to start a session stuck a buy-in. So it's 325, 41.75 behind, so assuming neither of these guys 4-bets, we will set mine. It's a little worse out of position. Good thing is the SPR will let us get the money in probably pretty easily if we flop a set. And we do not flop a set. It's an okay flop for us, but I'm just going to check fold. I did intend to set mine here. It's a little bit weak, but all his big pairs still beat us, and the only other hand that makes sense... Wow, he didn't bet very much. The only other hand that really makes sense is ace-king, which has equity against us. So it's a little weak, but I think I am going to give it up. Sometimes I like squeezing with hands like this. With that stack size, it's really not a great option because, let's say I squeezed a 5, 455 or 550, and he shoves. I put 550 in, it'll be 15 more to call. It's just I mean, Do you really want to call with 8 high pre-flop? Do you really want to put 550 in but then fold for 15 more? So not really a viable squeeze spot. Yes, we'll post the big blind, get pocket nines. So that's the hand we got stacked. This is the table we got stacked on with queens. I was hoping to turn it around with the nines there, but it looks like we won't get any action this time. This guy is continuing his open limp strategy. Given how dry it is, I am going to lead. I'll probably go for 3 streets of small value against this guy, but they both fold. So he's played 8 out of the 10 hands we've sat with him. He's only raised 1 of them. This is kind of a loose open against a guy who's defending really loose, but in position I feel at least decent. This guy's pretty tight, and we flop top pair. I think I am going to check it back and try and get 3 or 2 full streets of value. And pocket 2s, not really. I've kind of switched my strategy against button openers. I kind of go back and forth depending on how the game flow is. And who the people are, but I have switched towards 3-betting some of them and trying to just take it down pre-flop, or at least have the initiative going into the flop. I'm going to bet this turn, and I'm going to check back the river if he calls. I think we get value from 10-jack, which could lead. And some other hands, what do we got here? 38, 38. Alright, so we take it down, so that worked out for us. Given this guy's stack size, you know what, I think I am going to bet half pot, though if he raises I'm going to be kind of bummed I blew myself off the nut straight draw, but I can represent an ace. The problem is he'll probably like check and jam some aces, and that stack size is pretty good for it. Now our c-bet does work, so we've been fortunate. Second pair, how do I want to play this against that stack size? Maybe let's give him a few opportunities to bluff. 33-11, we've only played 9 hands. He's semi-aggressive post-flop in those 9 hands. So let's see if maybe he'll bluff some draws. Sometimes he actually shows up with the 9 or like a weird pair or something. But I think we'll have the best hand often enough. And if he has no showdown value, like let's say he has 10 high or something, probably... Gosh, so this guy, alright, fine, we'll peel one off multi-way here, and flop top pair. That's a bummer. We're going to be getting it in against Mr. Min 3-bet over here. Might be a good thing. What's this guy thinking? It's kind of weird. He's thinking, make it $5. Interesting. I was thinking I wanted to get it in. So what is, I raise, get 3-bet, and it gets 3-bet in 2 places. Guess we're going to call and just get it all in on the turn. I'm not super thrilled about it, and I'm trying to think of what hands I beat. He shouldn't have king 10, but he could have ace 10. And now we have sealed our fate. We are going to be calling this shove, and that's a great flop. If he checks back, I'll probably shove almost any river. Maybe not a jack. Alright, show me jacks. Alright. Pocket 5's no good, sir. Actually, given that stack size, I'm happy to get it in on the flop. Sometimes he'll even fold, but we have an open-ended straight draw and a flush draw. Maybe I could call and hope he comes along, but sometimes he'll just fold here, and sometimes we'll get it in with a jillion outs. That's not one of them. That's one of them. So we're running good. And we've actually made some of that money back over here that we lost with the queens right away. Looks like we're up a small amount here, about 50 big blinds here, and about break even down here. So we're doing okay. Yep, another flop that we'll be happy to get the money in on, given these tiny stack sizes and the drawing nature of this board. I've got 2 options. I can check raise all in and hope that he bluffs some draws. He is somewhat aggressive post-flop, so I'm going to give him a chance to maybe bluff his chips off. Now, sometimes he checks back, gets a free card, and it bites us hard. But the 2 shouldn't help him. If he has a draw, we are way ahead anyway. And I want to give him an opportunity to bluff worse hands than ours, that I think just like betting would probably blow him off a 9, but now he might think, well, my 9's probably good. He probably has ace-king. He might accidentally be bluffing or something. And unfortunately, the draw comes in, and the stack sizes are not really, so I've got top 2 pair. Stack sizes aren't great for a bet fold. I don't think I guess we can bet fold half pot. I don't know if I can fold, though, after he shoves, because he could do it with queen 9. Yeah, he has a flush, but he made it so small we're going to pay it off. And he's an idiot. So he gave us a free extra $4 there. If he was trying to represent the flush, obviously just clicking it back gives such good odds to people. Yeah, it kind of does represent the flush. Like, I could see someone playing the flush that way. Like, I've got a flush. It's hard for him to have a flush. I'll just min raise. The problem is it gives such good odds that if I have a hand like mine... Now, if I didn't have 2 pair, that might have worked. Even if I had ace-queen. Because I was actually expecting, if we had the best hand, I was actually expecting to see... what's going on here? You know what? I want these people in the pot, so we're going to overlimp. I was actually more hoping to see something like queen 9, a weird jack 9, something weird like that. And obviously when he folds, we're going to call and then get it in on the turn. And whatever. Snap calling. Snap. What's he going to show? No, queen's no good. Slow played the queens. Nice. Opening it straight draw, second pair, backdoor, not straight flush draw. So we will peel 1 here. I think you could also raise if you wanted to. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're going to see something you don't want to see, where like guy has jack queen or something, and you're like drawing to the chop, and drawing pretty thin, I'll add. I'm going to check this back. This guy could really put us in a tough spot. And the river, actually our hand's really not that good given these guys' combined ranges now. Alright, I'll pay off $1 and I will fold that. I expect to see a flush pretty often. A straight possible? Well, now I definitely expect to see a flush, which really wouldn't make sense for him to have anything but a flush, and usually a really good one after the way the hand played out. So, and he does. He has the nuts. And I'm guessing this guy might have got flush over flushed or nut straight over flushed. Something really strong, possibly a set, but it would make no sense to check back the flush turn and then raise the river. So I do want to see what he had, though. Let's pull that up. He flopped the lower end of the straight and got the bad news. He had the low straight, flopped it, and unfortunately, obvious flush was obvious, but by that point he was sort of committed how to go on the river. He raised to 550 and got shoved on for like, what was it, like $9 more or something? Come on. And it goes call, I have the open-ended straight draw. So that guy made a okay bet on the flop, an okay play on the flop. He bet his straight, and he got value from 3 of us. The problem is, it's pretty obvious that there's a ton of drawing hands, and the most likely one's always going to be the flush draw. When the flush comes in, he checks back. He checks back. I also check. And, oh gosh, what's 62, 23 over 13 hands, 0% 3-bet. All right, I'll let it go. You could probably shove there too. He checks it back. The guy bets $1, and I guess he kind of comes to the conclusion, I wouldn't check back a flush on this board because there's a bunch of 8-9s, 9-10s, 8-10s sets, king 10s, king 9s that would want to get value. So he thinks, I can't have a flush, and this guy betting $1 means he probably doesn't have a flush. So he decides to value raise his straight, which I obviously snap fold. Then he gets shoved on for 7 more. And this is where I guess you could probably fold. Now, because it's so odd. Like, it's just so hard for you to have the best hand, and you have to have it. What is it? 7 into 24. You don't have to be right that often though. Yeah, we are going to 3-bet 2s in position, win the pot. I'm going to set mine in position, hope one of these guys comes along. They don't, and I do not flop a set. But when he checks, I think I will stab at it. Interesting. Most likely hands are stuff like 8s, 9s, 10s. Scared of the ace. I don't know if he folds it though, and he's kind of a weird player. We'll just get to showdown. Unless it's a 5, which I would obviously bet. If he bets the river, I'll just fold. Because there's not any like draws that he could have had that were check calling that missed. Right? I mean, he doesn't have 3-4. Pocket 5s don't really beat anything. 437 into 11. I don't know why he raised pre and then checked that flop, but we will let it go. Not feel too bad about that. Can't really beat anything. Only thing that makes me a little bit find it a little strange is that he check called flop and bet the river. I could see a hand like ace 10, ace 9 suited, even ace jack doing that. Pocket kings possibly, because the king did come in on the turn. It's a weird line. I sometimes take it with like mediocre. Oh, sweet. Oh, never mind. I thought the 7s were up here. I saw that 7. Okay. I sometimes take it with like an ace 10 type hand. But, yeah. So I got to give a quick shout out to my boy Josh Gibson, JGibs, who taught me everything I know about poker. Really inspired me to become the best player I could be and the best person I could be. Okay, I'm kidding about that last one, but I am going to give a quick shout out to the poker players from my area here. Just got a text saying I better give them a shout out, so there you go, buddy. That one's for you. And we flop the nut flush draw with the gut shot to the nut straight draw. We will bet and be happy to get it in. And in a raised pot, we flop top 2. And that's a pretty terrible turn. And I have to try and focus on 2 hands at the same time. I am going to check that back. Whiff everything? How do you whiff everything? Gosh, I'm going to check 25, 17, 10. So he could float some. I'm going to call, but I'm not really in love with it. And I don't think... King, queen. Really? That's so weird. That is such a weird line to take. Raise pre, flop that on a dry board, and then check. And we missed all our outs. Man, a queen would have been sweet. Would given him 2 pair. Okay, so we check back the river, and we win that pot. And I am curious what he had that didn't want to bluff. Must have been like a 1 pair, queen, 10s, king, queen. So we 3-outed him on the flop, and I was about to say I'm surprised he called the turn, but I'm seeing that he actually had the nut flush draw to go with it, so that makes sense. And then on the river, he just wanted to get to showdown, so he actually played it okay. I like to 3-bet king, queen, pre for this exact reason. Like, never would have happened that way. Oh, sweet. Top pair and a flush draw against 2 short stacks we'll be happy to get it in against. And I think I will raise here for value. We have a ton of outs if we're behind. Now, especially with 2 people, we are going to try and punish them and get the money in. Sometimes amazing things will happen, like they'll have a bare flush draw or a bare straight draw, and you'll just be in great shape. And we are just going to put them in on the turn here. Really funny if he had jack 9 and called in 1, like when we flop top pair and no flush draw. Here we'll fold. He's thinking, what's he got? Oh, wow, he's ahead, and he's going to take it. That is disappointing, to say the least. Can't ask for a better flop than that. But he does make the call and wins. So ace jack, we tried to isolate. Oh gosh. So he, thinking about going crazy here. He had 50 cents in. I'm gonna go crazy. Don't try this at home, kids. He had 50 cents in there, so it looked like I was attacking his dead money. So I think he'll do this wide enough that ace-jack is probably okay. If we get a fold from 6s or 7s, it's obviously a huge win. And sometimes he'll show up with aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace-king, ace-queen suited, which might call. But looks like he's either slow rolling us, which is fine. I love it when I get slow rolled. Or he is, in fact... if he is slow rolling, I hope... Good. We've got plenty of outs. There's one of them. And we hold. Sweet. We are running good this week. I love it. I'm going to check back given his stack size. We have more outs. And I'll just pay off his little queen. Nope. Pair of 7s. We win. Costed himself 50 extra cents there, by the way, because I was going to check it back. Makes no sense to do that. But this guy with 10s, I think it's actually a fine call. And it's actually a really good spot for him to be in with 10s. Because it does look like I might be attacking that extra 75 cents that's in there. He had missed a blind, so he was in for 50 cents already, plus 25 when I isolated up front with ace-jack. Usually I just fold ace-jack to a 3-bet and feel pretty good about it. Given how that happened, this guy's very tight. We'll go for a steal. And we do get it. Given how... he had that money in, and it might appear that I'm stealing, and I think he might play back at the fact that he has some money in there. I did decide to go crazy with ace-jack. I cannot remember the last time I got ace-jack all in pre-flop. It's probably been 10 years or something. It's not a hand you ever want to get all in pre-flop, even for 80 big blinds, but I felt like it might be an okay spot given the situation, and I think we actually almost got him to fold the best hand, and when he called, we were in a flip. And when he took that long to call, the only hand I was really afraid of him showing up with that had us in terrible shape was pocket jacks or pocket queens. Sometimes they'll knit it up and try and fold queens pre. Jacks you actually possibly can fold pre. Oh, gosh. I'm not going to do anything crazy, even though we are, this guy might be tilted, and he's auto-posting his small and big, so dang, he snap folds. I would have called in position with king-queen with 220 big blinds, but alas, we will not get to. We'll be right back, taking a phone call. Well, that was kind of fortunate. While I was on the phone, and we flop another flush draw. Maybe we can flush him again. While I was on the phone, we make the nut flush. I almost folded pre-flop, but he's tight. And, oh gosh. Why can't it be a combo draw? Dang it. If I had bet 2, his shove would be for 4 more and I could call, but I can't really call with jack high. All right, buddy. And then I had kings down here, now I have aces. And over here, that pot actually, I misplayed a little bit. I was trying to focus on my conversation and the fact that I had the nut flush and was actually getting paid. So I probably should have raised at some point, given how weak it was. Now, in the end, he ended up showing he had trips. So obviously it wouldn't have worked on the turn, probably wouldn't have worked on the flop. So it kind of saved us a little bit of money, me not being in the hand fully. But I had a gut shot. He was betting $1.50, which I floated. Then he bet $1.50 again on the turn, which seemed weak, but I let him get away with it, and he ended up having trips. So when you're running good, you're running good, and we didn't bluff off all our chips. Obviously, I was kind of drawing for that gut shot with the ability to bluff later in the hand, and it didn't develop that way. But like I said, kind of worked out for us. We're almost to a half hour on this video. I'm going to check back this flop, and it's not a great turn. And when he checks out, there's 2 flush draws now we can get value from, and sometimes he just folds. I don't think he folds better hands. Like, he's not folding a king or an ace. Sometimes he'll fold a jack, though. Now, we're not getting value from worse hands except those flush draws. And I think he would have bet either of those flush draws on the turn, but I think they have enough equity. There's hands that can suck out on us, and after he checks twice, I think we have the best hand often enough that betting is okay. And also, like, do you really want to check back the turn and then him bet on the river? On, like, the river's a 3, and he bets $1.50 or $2. Both options really suck, calling or folding. So I think betting there is okay. Anyway, what I was saying, the ace-king hand, kind of unfortunate, but fortunate. Obviously, that hand was great, and I actually need to see, I don't think I've pulled up yet and saw what he actually had. I checked the turn because I didn't think 3, and I was correct, I didn't think it could get checked through twice. Especially if someone had a decent diamond. Now he can't have the ace of diamonds because I had the ace of diamonds. But I had ace 9. He flopped a set, so I was very fortunate. Actually could have gotten all the money if I had jammed the turn. But it's kind of hard to put a guy on a set who checks back that flop. I mean, that's as drawy as it gets, and he checks it back. So that's kind of funny. We are going to set mine out of position. I don't want to squeeze. It's a good flop for 5s, but probably will give it up. After the pre-flop razor checks, this guy shouldn't actually have a ton of 6s and 8s, so I think I am going to feel okay calling here. And now I actually have turned some outs. He could have some, like, he could have a set, but he's 18-13, not super aggressive post-flop, but I'm just not buying it. I'm really not buying it. 5-7 possibly, ace 8, pocket 8s, pocket 6s, pocket 4s maybe, pocket 2s maybe, but like I said, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, and he just flatted queens, so he did have the best hand. He missed a little value on the river, because I was going to pay off if it was like around half pot, because it's kind of hard to put a guy who doesn't 3-bet pre on queens, especially a guy who over 40 hands has typically 3-bet queens. You see that right there. That 6% 3-bet does include queens. So I was not putting them on. Big pairs, 8s, 9s, 10s, possibly, 7s. What was the board? 6, 4, 2, 3, 6 or something. So I'm glad he checked back the river, because I would have had a decision to make. I think is most likely value bet hands do beat us, obviously, 8s, 9s, 10s, sets, quads. But I also think it gets raised pre-flop, he calls in position, it goes to check, and he'll stab at it with a wide range, and then it checks again on the turn, he might stab again, so the river would have been somewhat interesting. Now we did blow $10 there through our genius call down, but that's okay. We're going to hit sit out next big blind. Been a decent session. I'm guessing we're up at least a buy-in. Now I know we started stuck, but we're actually up. We're probably unstuck, and then another 40 over here. I think we're up a little bit over here. I don't think we rebought much on that table. Right here we're down a little bit, and then up here we are up here a little bit. So anyway, I'll give one last final shout out to the indie poker crew. JGibs, the best poker player in the world. And then, of course, I'll give a shout-out to some of my many 17 subscribers who watch these videos. Thank you. I got my bro, let me look it up. Psittacus? I don't know how to pronounce this. Well, you know who you are, buddy. Psittacus. Thanks for watching the videos and leaving all these comments, man. I love it. But yeah, looks like we are going to be wrapping this session up. That's going to be a sit out. That's going to sit out. That's going to sit out. And that is already sitting out. So we will shut it down. Got Hold'em Manager running back here. We can go through that real quick. That's kind of cool. Now let's just hit sit out next hand. And I think it would have anyway, because we would have, yep, it was going to sit us out. So let's just shut these down, see how the Road to 5K challenge is coming along here. So let's get a refresher on this. Takes a while. Might be 12:21. Could be more, actually. It takes a while for all the tables to refresh, but that number seems ballparkish, so I bet that's correct. So 12:21. It's been a very slow grind. I've been playing for a month. I started with 1,000, and 1 month later we're at 221. Really, after bonuses, I've broken even for a month. Now, there were 2 weeks that I ran almost as bad as I've ever run. And they weren't tracked, they were zone, and I didn't know about the ignition card catching situation yet, which also doesn't help because you have to convert zone hands. It's a lot of hoops to jump through playing on ignition. But point is, this last week's been good. Switching from zone, which is pretty much readless and a totally different game, to the 6-max, which is what I started on in my poker career back in 2007 before converting to heads up, and now back to kind of playing whatever good games are running. Zone was fun, and I'll definitely go back to playing it, but cash games have been good, especially running a HUD. So in the last week, since getting this, let's go to reports. Haven't played that much volume. Less than 2,000 hands, which is, in the grand scheme of things is nothing. So the big blinds per 100 looks great. 27, crushing it. But really, it's the sample size is insignificant, truly insignificant, which should really shed some light on why live poker is so hard to get good sample sizes on, because this would take forever in live poker. If you're playing once a week, good luck playing this many hands, and it really doesn't tell you much. So sample sizes are important to look at. So we are up since tracking about a week ago, about 5 buy-ins. The win rate's been good, and we've won 260. We've paid 109 in rake, so that's where they get you. Look at the results graph, actually running substantially above. Well, actually, it's not too bad. I am running above expectation, though. So this orange line is your all-in value, so it calculates your equity in the pot when you get all in, and that's where it would be. So some of these flips I've been winning this week have caused me to actually be winning up here in showdown pots when I should be here. The red line's been pretty good. In fact, today's session, till this point, must have had some good spots. I know I started off the session with some good red line wins where people folded in medium and big size pots. So that's been good. One thing that is problematic about this, and maybe if someone watching this video can leave a comment and help me out, it is not sorting this as 6-max versus heads up. So I played a bunch of heads up, not a bunch, but a few hundred hands of heads up, and it's just going in all as 25-50 no limit hold'em, which wouldn't be a huge issue, except that I do want to know my win rate at heads up versus 6-max versus full ring, and I also am going to have some serious issues in the position values. Playing heads up is going to completely skew the small blind, big blind, because you're always in the small blind or the big blind heads up, and you're playing a ton of hands. So the VPIP and pre-flop raising are going to be through the roof compared to what legitimate 6-max stats would be. So that's a little bit annoying. If anyone knows how to get ignition hands to actually separate into heads up and 6-max, that would be great. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks to the people who have subscribed. You're the best. Until next time, I'm out.